Hey there, everybody. Welcome into Reaper's Underground. I am filling in. I have Beast filling in for Reaper today. And we have the one and only Josh Elmore, Cattle Decapitation, us all the way from Berlin. He's staying up late for us. And then we also have Nick Turner from I think, Imperial Beast, just San Diego. And he is with like Acausal Intrusion and several other bands. So I just wanted to welcome everyone. Josh, are you good?
Yeah, I just got audio. For some reason it bypassed, but I'm good now.
Okay, great. Excellent. I could tell. I can see confusion. So Nick will hop back in a second.
Yeah, there we go.
So what we're going to do today, the topic for discussion, and I could not have found two better men than Josh and Nick for this. We are talking about the avant-garde of metal. And so what I'm hoping to do today is we're going to kind of talk a little bit. I want to define a little bit what is or what does the avant-garde of metal mean to both of you two. And then I want to discuss a little bit about the history. Who were the big influencers? Was it jazz? Was it Rush? Was it Zappa back in the 60s, 70s, moving up? And then as we get into the 80s, we were going to touch on bands, maybe talk about that, and then get into where we are with the bands that are really pushing limits and doing something really fresh and new. So, Josh, why don't you start off with talk about what you is the avant-garde? You hear that? What do you think?
I think that term has kind of evolved definitely over the course of the genre's history. I mean, starting out, it was basically just heavier blues-based music, and then it maybe took until I'd say maybe the later 70s to where you had some of these, or maybe mid-late 70s to where you had some of these prog bands that were either having this sort of influence on traditional metal or, it was seeping in through some way to where then you got like bands that at the time were called metal, but obviously by today's standards, like I'm going to throw Zebra. Do you remember Zebra?
No, that's new.
You don't? Okay. It was kind of like it was one of those bands that like had this sort of grandiose themes and this, ridiculous artwork, and there was a chess piece and a rainbow and all this, on the covers of their records. To where it was like, if you hear it now, it's kind of like this sort of, this bit stoner uncle fantasy kind of music. But I think that was where it kind of seeped in. There was these hard rock bands that like had this sort of progressive element, and then punk rock coming in the late 70s too. I think those things all kind of came together as it went into the 80s and thrash came around. All these things come together. There were these varying levels of proficiency of the musicians to where, like, I don't know. I think I remember it was like a Hard Times sort of article, like from a couple years ago, that says, the title is something like, guitarist either has no idea what he's doing or is the most incredible guitar player you've ever seen. One of those kind of things. And I think there was a lot of that happening. Like post-punk into thrash into like even some of the art bands like New York stuff like Swans and Pere Ubu and all that that kind of all fused together to be these influences that really all of a sudden affected metal in a way to where avant-garde it didn't have to necessarily mean like, well, prog but noisy. I mean, it could mean that. It just seemed to be like you had all these different levels of proficiency and people with just the desire to push forward to where it does harken back to that article title. Like, this guy or person may have not the slightest idea what they're doing, but that's kind of the beauty of it. So there isn't necessarily a technical discipline that's like impressive in a way that like a trained musician to be like, this guy. But at the same time, it's blowing people's minds because you're like, who would do this or that, you know? And is this a song even, you know, or whatever? And I think like it's just a healthy mixture of absolute ignorance and drive that somehow distills down into this like honed ineptitude that just turns out ends up turning out so good. It's a shame sometimes because bands sometimes evolve and they get a lot better at their instruments, and then it's like better in a conventional way. I mean, there's plenty of people who have gotten better and just stayed true and just are still blowing minds with what they're doing. But I think throughout the history of metal, it's just I think the constant, is this sort of desire to push forward with whatever minimal tools you have technically, and then you just get out there and do it. And however it shakes out, it shakes out. And sometimes there's genius stuff, and sometimes there's stuff you put on and go, you hear that? Okay, let's you want to go get something to eat? Okay, let's get something to eat. It's kind of like that. So I don't know. That's probably nonsense, but I think you get what I was saying.
No, absolutely. Nick, how about you? What's your sense on this?
Well, yeah, John, I think you're kind of like honing in on that difference between prog and avant-garde. Whereas prog is influencing from many genres and pushing forward through technicality and complex compositions, whereas avant-garde is using some of that, but just kind of doing whatever the fuck we want, and maybe not having the technical ability even sometimes, but still going for it. Like, I came up with this thing, I can barely play it, I don't know how it's gonna sound, I don't know how, but I'm still just doing it, and I'm just, yeah, how we all write, all three of us, I'm sure, and that's some of the beauty of metal, in that we have some of the most open templates to kind of just throw shit at a wall and see what sticks. Pretty early on, metal started breaking the verse chorus structure, and just kind of became very riff driven, being such a guitar driven genre. So it allows us to just come up with these bizarre riffs. Sometimes they're not melodic in the slightest, they're just shapes that we're visualizing almost from a visual standpoint. Sometimes they're just strange noises we figure out how to do and intersperse with the riff. And then the songwriting comes, and how do we blend that into a song and make it a cohesive story? Where it's not herky-jerky or, it doesn't make, like, it has to make sense as a composition, And that's the beauty of avant-garde. Either it's really fucking good or it's really fucking bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's really, either you succeed or you fail. There's no mediocrity. There's no cookie cutter. There's no, oh, that was a decent, little death metal EP. There's none of that. It's just kind of either you did it or you did it. And it's okay to not do it also, because at least you tried. You know what I mean? I feel I've failed on certain albums and I've beyond succeeded on certain albums, But I think the avant-garde is really that never being okay with the status quo. Just always having to push forward, and even having that dissatisfaction with an album I just clicked release on, because I've already gone beyond that. I'm already trying to do something way beyond that, and it's really, I'm only satisfied sometimes. I'll go back, listen to shit I did 4 or 5 years ago. I'm like, damn, I was actually good back then. I don't know what happened. But I think I need a significant period of time to take, to pass between a work before I can look at it objectively again and really see the good things, because in the moment it's that addiction, it's that striving for something new, something different. And growing up and really getting into guitar, I found that in bands like King Crimson, who really, I think, started this whole kind of avant-garde and metal thing. It really kind of all goes back to that, even though it's prog rock or hard rock or it had this evilness to a lot of it.
Yeah.
That to me, that's what makes something metal. It's not the gain or the distortion or the blast beats. It's this kind of sinister tone. You know.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Reconnect.
Well, he'll be back pretty soon.
Mhm.
A point that I wanted to bring up is a lot of times, and I'm not an outstanding technical guitar player. I can play, I can get by, I can do vocals, a lot of stuff. But, you know, a lot of times I've found there's somebody who's been to guitar school and they're a guitar wanker. They can do all kinds of stuff, but when it comes to writing something that's catchy or something that sounds really new, they're too technical and too kind of sterile. Nothing seems raw and fresh with what they're doing a lot of the times.
Yeah, I definitely can see that. That's the thing is, I think with how modern recording is too, which I mean, the past, I don't know how many albums I've done are done exactly that way, but I'm not condemning or poo-pooing that. It's more just like, it's almost make it as tight as you can sound, but with a human element to it. So it's nothing's going to be perfect. But I mean, there's people that could like listen to our cattle records and be like, oh, that's way too sterile. That's way too tight and fixed or stuff. And it's just like, well, no, that's all of us playing all that stuff, you know, yeah, of course, recorded separately with, you know, piece by piece, but it's all us and stuff like that. But I totally see what you're saying. Like, I mean, there's a lot of the like guitar players I would look up to that, yeah, are incredibly talented, but it's not in a conventional way. It's not in a sort of Guitar Center, you know, 8-finger tapping way. It's more just super creative, maybe super technical, but not in a manner that's whatever the metric is. The current metric for that, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, my browser randomly updated and booted me off, but I made it back in here.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah. But yeah, just going back to the King Crimson thing, I really think that's where it started. And, you know, these bizarre guitar patterns, you know, it was some of the first stuff I heard as a kid that kind of blew my mind, you know. And then going back, just that dissonance really stuck out to me. Rather than the shredding or the yin wei stuff or the tapping, you know, that still all made sense musically to me, that it's just kind of scales or modes or neoclassical type shit. But hearing shit that broke what I knew of music theory and just shattered it into a million pieces, that's what I was interested in, you know, and how to make these horrible sounding things that actually sound phenomenal, you know. To me, they do. I know not to everyone they do, but I think that's what unites us in avant-garde metal, is that these, you know, really terrible sounding things actually intrigue us and sound amazing to us, you know.
Yeah, they're these a lot of times, like what I think of when I hear these bands, it's intentional. It's very intentional. And so there have been some reviews on Vitriol's new album, and I've gone and listened to it, and it's like they don't get it that this is what Vitriol is doing is exactly what they've intended to do. It's really in your face, dissonant at times, really, really bizarre stuff. The riffs don't stand out. They're not groovy or as it might be in other forms of metal. But I would argue, if guys, and I'm probably going to have to drum it soon, that's what they're intended, is to sound exactly what they sounded like.
Right.
We're, by the way, reviewing Vitriol's album tomorrow, the new album.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think it's exactly what I mean. We actually toured with them a few years ago, I think 2018. And then we'll actually be touring with them again in this upcoming May for the Chaos and Carnage thing.
Yeah.
But it's all very intentional. There's no like just flying it in to see what happens. They're super intense, and I mean, it's like you said, it's not. I mean, yeah, there's riffs in the conventional sense there, but it's like a slurry of texture because it's so just intense attack and just a lot of just like, you know, slurring and stuff like that, and it succeeds, you know, at exactly what it's trying to do.
Right. I want to acknowledge Kyler gave me a pick at the show in May, Josh, and Kyler's was he's been looking forward to this show a long time. And then we have another of my friends out of Austin by Mouse, and he follows us quite a bit into apostle and cattle decapitation, bands that are really pushing metal. So she as well. So yeah, I think is a great one that I didn't think when I ran up. That's outstanding. When I watch old Napalm Death videos, and they're like from the talking about their, and King Crimson was one of their big ones. And I would argue that Napalm Death, although they were unconventional, really short songs and the grind element to it, but not technical and not really weird to me, especially in today's sense. Not pioneering, but I would still call them like they were the avant-garde at a time. Like I really wanted everybody. Have you heard Napalm Death? But in a different sense of the way. But what got to me, if I think about Frank Zappa, like the band Robert Patterson may have gone back and looked at what Frank Zappa and Time Changes. Rush, I know Robert likes Geddy Lee, and his bass is really prominent and similar as Geddy Lee is. But then, like, there were a couple of bands in the late 80s that I thought really kind of opened things up. And was Godflesh in the Street.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And the other one was Atheist, but the Piece of Time album. And I'm showing these so people can go find these CDs. And these are albums.
Right.
Piece of Time and Questionable
Presence.
That's what I'm repping my shirt here today. But what say you guys? Like around as we're moving into the late 80s, of course, Death had their kind of form of vocal, which was very avant-garde, along with Possessed for a certain extent. But what would you think for Josh? Jump in.
Could you repeat that again? You're kind of dropping out a bit.
Like which were the bands? Like was it Atheist for you, Godflesh for you, that was really pushing things at the late 80s when thrash was starting to kind of for us?
Oh, I would say actually Voivod for me.
Oh, hell
yeah. Nothing Face.
Yes.
To this day is like, it was one of those that like my friends were like, oh, Dimension Hantros and all the early Roar and War and Pain, and it's nothing against those. I just hadn't gotten those records yet.
Yeah.
And then I didn't get them until later. But then my first one was like, oh, I'll get a Voivod record, was Nothing Face. And that's the first one I jumped in on. And
me too.
That's it, man. From to today, I can still listen to that all the time and like love it, and that Piggy's guitar style and just how cold the music sounded and really just sort of like not robotic in a sort of like nowadays precision tight way, but robotic, and it's just like the writing was just sounded very steely, and the music sounded exactly like all those panels in the cassette that Away did all the art for. Right. And it's just very steely and futuristic and sort of post-apocalyptic dystopian, and I just think the entire package of the artwork and then Piggy's guitar playing and everything, that's what really affected me at that time, and still does to this day.
Oh, that was an excellent one. It's right across in my collection over there. I face when it came out.
Love it.
You're right. Piggy's guitar phrasing with his solos and even his riffs are really.
Oh yeah.
And that guitar that he had, I don't know if that was a BT Rich, but that thing got stolen on tour through the like luggage at one point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the one that was like looked like a piece of their logo basically. Almost. Yeah. It was this sort of spiky. Yeah, that thing was just like black with the red pinstripe on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I really think back in that era when I go back and listen to all that stuff, everyone was really trying to push it pretty far, whether in their own way. there wasn't as many rules, or it wasn't as cookie cutter of I'm going to be a thrash band, I'm going to be a prog death band, I'm going to be, there wasn't all these sub genres. It was just like I want to be heavy and do it however I can, you know. And some bands pushed it farther than others, but yeah, showing that with Godflesh versus Atheist, it's the two sides of zero technicality and wall of sound and creating this, dystopian, bleak atmosphere versus high level technicality, but trying to create this totally insane soundscape with these ridiculous riffs that no one else was doing yet. So it's the two sides of the avant-garde when really it's like instead of, and that's where I go back to the distinction of prog and avant-garde. Instead of showing how good I am, I'm gonna try to evoke this mood that's never been evoked before.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is through using unconventional notes or phrasing or song ideas. That's the way we do it musically. But I think back then everyone was kind of trying to figure it out, and then into the early '90s is when people started putting themselves in little boxes, and then from there people started rebelling as a result of that, and then we get Demolition, Gorguts, and all the other good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like a Disembowelment in 1993 put out their album, their single album. Super hard to find these days, but this is like it came out about 2 years after, 1 year after Cathedral's Religion, which I thought was outstanding, and it came out like 3 years before the first two Paradise Lost albums. But what Disembowelment did that was so different is that unconventional atmosphere technique threw in there. Amazing fucking album, like 20 songs on the album, and a lot of them over 4-6 minutes. But if you guys, I don't have that album. You want to send?
I don't have it, but I've heard it so many times. Just to me, it's kind of like the pinnacle of if I want to go a death or funeral doom route.
Mm-hmm.
They just achieved that feeling with those clean guitars and the drowning in reverb and just the phrasing and choices and the unexpected dropouts into quietness and the dynamics. They just no one had really done that yet in a metal realm, And the first time I heard dynamics like that was listening to Slint's Spiderland.
Oh yeah.
And that was a massive influence on me as a young teenager smoking tons of weed, trying to play in my bands. Hearing that, I'm like, oh, that's what I want to do, I want that intensity, those build-ups, those dropouts, those, instead of a song remaining the same shit the whole time, I want those, all of a sudden pull the whole thing out under them and then slowly build that intensity with those crescendos. And it's almost like classical music in a sense, but we miss that in rock and metal sometimes, just going full force.
Mm-hmm.
And shit loses its heaviness when it's just chug, 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 chug for 45 minutes. I get fucking bored. Personally, I do. You know, I need to hear at least an interlude of some weird synthy shit or, a little clean guitar part and then come back in and it feels heavy again.
Yeah.
But when it's the same thing the whole damn time, I check out mentally, personally.
Yeah.
So I'm going to bring up an album if we need to go back a little bit more. But to me, this album is one that is still timeless even today. And to me, this is the one that really kind of pushed things more than I know. You guys know some others I don't, but I'm talking about Obscura.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I heard this album, oh my gosh, because I already loved Atheist.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is like 10 times even more beyond Atheist. What say you guys?
I got it when they were still just on Olympic before Olympic joined to I think it was Century Media or whatever they got absorbed by. This guy Marty was part of Olympic, his label, and they were based out of, I want to say Elgin, Illinois. And I was living in Chicago area at the time. So the sort of just the digipack, or not digipack, but just the cover and the CD in a little plastic case appeared to my buddy's distro. And I'm like, yoink, because at that point, I hadn't heard them yet. That was the first time I'd heard Gorguts, strangely enough. And then, it's not that I didn't know what to make of it. It was just more like, because at that point in time in my life, it was like metal had become, kind of, I don't know, I was kind of come and go with it, but then that and a couple other events at the time kind of brought me right back. I heard that and I was just like, this is, obviously these guys are not just doing the normal 9-to-5 death metal thing, so I was super impressed, technically, and then just some of the ideas for the riffs were just played it was just incredibly calculated, but played in such a way that it was sound like the wheels were going to fall off at any given time. Like there was just they were just hanging on, but it's beautiful that way,
Yeah, absolutely. Like Nick and I were talking before about especially this album, and Nick has done this with his recent albums. Like it's like the game all the way back to one, but really intense, all over the place.
Well, and that's what, kind of why I said earlier, metal is not about the level of gain or the loudness. It's about that kind of evilness and that intensity and pushing these boundaries that no other music's willing to do. And, that's what Gorguts really did with that album. And they really opened the entire realm of the, disso death or the avant-garde or disso black metal, and without them, there would be no Death Spell Omega, and there'd be none of the modern bands. And, it really just opened the whole door of what we're capable of in the genre. And, I'm a lot younger than you guys, and I fucked off a good decade of my life being crazy and stupid, and finally pulled my head out of my ass and got back into music. So, I've been blessed to work with a lot of older, experienced people who've educated me on all this stuff. But and they knew my style already, how I play. They knew exactly what to show me, which was Gorguts and Demolich and Disembowelment. All the bands we've spoken of are the things they showed me because they saw the potential in me to be able to do all this stuff. When most of the local musician kind of cookie cutter guys can't even try to go there, or aren't able to open their minds to that. I was already playing all sorts of way out shit, and I just hearing all that is like adding to our vocabulary. Learning new words to write with, learning new sentence structures, learning new languages. Even when you get down to the Gorguts shit of these weird pick scrapes and sliding shit, and they're just doing tricks, but orchestrating it in this like psychotic manner. And playing in the most wild time signatures. I doubt they had any idea what time signatures they were playing in at that time. They just said, no, I came up with this thing, and it's, and it's like 15/8 or something, but they don't know that. They're just jamming it and getting tight, but that's what makes it so great. There's no metronome. There's no, click track. There's no editing. They're just have to fucking hammer that shit out until it's tight as fuck. And that's what I love.
Yep, I agree, Mousebong. Gorguts are pioneers. I think we all concur with that. That album, especially Obscura, is outstanding. I saw Gorguts in like '92 when they were just straight death metal and considered dead album. Had the t-shirt. I don't know what I wasn't. So when I heard Obscura, I was like, anything like Gorguts, just outstanding. But Nick, you brought up a band that I want to talk about now, and both of you guys in Cattle Decapitation, even in Terracite, the recent album, black metal is throughout it. In A Causal Intrusion, I hear black metal in there. The vocals might be Cave Monster for Causal Intrusion, but you black metal element there quite a bit. It leads me a lot to Deathspell Omega Heraclitus quite a bit. Fucking love this. This is another one, you guys. If you haven't, if you're really into avant-garde, you want to try something new, try out Deathspell Heraclitus. When I heard these guys, nobody was doing black metal. And one of the big things I like to talk about black metal board these days. There's like thousands and thousands of bands. Now the new Marduk this last year, thought it was outstanding, really well done. The Watain album that came 2 years ago was outstanding black metal, really, really well done black metal. But I'm pretty bored. Like I have a hard time. Maybe I have a hard time with the newer black metal bands. They're not doing something different. But Deathspell really does. So maybe you guys can take that as for some discussion.
Well, another band I heard that kind of blew my mind, who's way older, is Ved Buen's End. Or I don't know quite how to say it, but those clean vocals and clean guitar passages and just completely bizarre riffing and just the mixture of those depressed operatic vocals and the black metal vocals and the interludes and the instrumentation. I mean, I just fucking I found it on, my buddy had it on vinyl and sold it to me. I needed it, you know, and that's another band that goes back to what black metal is capable of, you know, which black metal probably even has a farther reach than death metal because, of what it's capable of, because it's really no rules really at all other than a depressive or evil atmosphere, and it can be taken, you don't even need guitars, there's, synth driven stuff and everything. So, but yeah, for me, it's very hard to just do one thing. I always am going to I view just kind of music as this big platter of all you can eat buffet, and I'm going to take what I like and put it on the plate, but obviously that differs for each project, what I want to get across, but it's going to be real fucking hard for me just to say I'm going to do a cookie cutter death metal thing. That's going to be really, best believe I'm throwing something weird in there because I just can't help myself. I'm that kid in the candy shop that can't help myself. But yeah, Deathspell Omega, Heraclitus, that's my favorite from them. And as far as modern black metal, I mean, I just kind of have to dig through the weird random demos that come out, and sometimes I find something gold. As far as mainstream or overproduced stuff, I just stay clear of it.
Yeah, I know Josh, your band came quite a bit, perusing and finding new bands.
Oh yeah, there's a couple, like a YouTube channel. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, so this is going to be useless to suggest because it's this giant. It's like a really long German word, so it's this compound thing, but it's basically a dungeon synth black metal mixed with like a bunch of demos from international bands, and then varying levels of some very traditional second wave black metal, and then some stuff that's just like kind of what I just got, or like I mentioned before, it's like the production is so like, what are they doing? Like, I mean, not that, I'm basically just barely able to comprehend Bandcamp, so I'm not speaking from any sort of like, level of expertise here. Or guitar, garage band, not Bandcamp, garage band. It's one of those things unintentionally avant-garde, to go back to our original sort of topic there. It's just like, why would they make this sort of production choice? Why does the guitar sound like that? Why does the snare sound like that? And it becomes like unintentionally progressive because I don't know if anyone would make these choices like later, but it's kind of beautiful. So I get on my YouTube like suggested listening, or like, oh, there's the person who runs that page is constantly putting new stuff up. So it's like, I'll go in and kind of like, okay, listen to a couple songs and like see if it's for me or not. But it's stuff like that. There's so many channels right now that's one of the beauty, as much as I whine about the internet, that's the beauty, like stuff like that. It's just like, it is so endless and so amazing that it's just like, I can just sample all this stuff. And it's like, Some of them are like practice recordings of like a one mic, probably in the basement, which is how myself and a lot of other people started out, doing stuff.
Yeah.
Same. My first album. Yep.
And then, which is strange because it's like, I found that a boombox in the center of the room or one mic oftentimes sounded better than that guy down the street that you went into his studio and paid him like $500.
Right.
It was like, I don't know. It's just like, you pay this guy. It's like, this sounds like crap. And then why we pay this guy when there was like literally a Panasonic boombox with one speaker that sounds way better. But
you really can't fuck up a single mic hung up the center of the garage.
No.
I remember, so the first album I recorded was with me and all my buddies in high school, and we were all really good musicians. I mean, we've been playing our whole life since little kids and taking lessons and everything, but we all just dropped a whole bunch of fucking acid and went in there and just went for it. Totally improv, and strung up a single fucking mic with this little mini disc recorder thing, like $30 at Radio Shack type shit. And dude, I mean, we sobered up and listened to it, and it sounded like everything was panned perfectly. Like you could hear the bass on the left, me on the guitar on the right, and then the drums sounded perfect. And it was like, what the fuck? And I've been trying to track that goddamn thing down to put out on my label just as a historical piece, but I haven't been able to find it again. But yeah, but then you take that versus someone who's an amateur recording artist and mixer, and they're separating all the tracks, but they have no fucking idea what they're doing. You can totally make it sound worse than that.
Oh yeah,
big time. Blowing out the bass on the kick, and the goddamn snare sounds like ass and it's peaking, and then the guitars aren't panned, and everything just sounds like fucking mush.
Absolutely.
Which goes back to the black metal bands unintentionally creating avant-garde. I think on rare occasions they do it intentionally today to capture the sound, but a lot of times when it's some random kids in like Cuba or something just trying to do this demo, they have no idea, and on accident they're clipping certain things and EQing horribly, and it creates, but sometimes it works out and creates this very unique atmosphere.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to throw out a band that Josh toured with in 2009. When I first met Josh, was like a week or two after the Harvest Floor came out, and they were touring with Psyopus. Oh wait, that's the this Psyopus. This came before, and this is the and again, and then this.
There we go.
They were touring, and it is odd sense. It's standing, really bizarre stuff. Maybe Josh, you can talk through these guys, because the guitarist, one hell of a guitarist.
Oh yeah, he's
amazing.
I think he actually his story, if I remember correctly, is he played guitar prior, or just was a guitar player, but he got into a car accident and was injured pretty badly, and I think something was like a part of his recovery, or was him being in bed, and just bedridden for a while. So he would just play guitar all day, and then he got a job where he was an attendant in an overnight parking lot. So he'd have one customer every few hours. So he just sat there and played guitar all day, all night in his little booth. So he just, practiced intensely all day or all night on his job, and then while he was recovering from his injury, and that kind of gave birth to his technical proficiency. But he's also extremely creative. It's not just the standard, licks or whatever, just executed really well. He's just, everything sounds like, I don't know, like a fax machine, 10 fax machines going at the same time. It's just or the set of ringtones. It's just, if he wants to be, but then he can do some very beautiful standard sounding, just conventionally beautiful guitar playing too. I think actually now he's in he's still playing, but I think it's not metal at all. I think it's he's from Rochester, New York. I think he's in some sort of I don't want to say a reggae band, but he's in something that's very, very not metal, where it's more like I show up, wear the tie, play the stuff, go home, have my life, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we toured with them, it was, of course, all incredible musicians. But just watching him every night, just like do all this stuff and be able to immediately translate from brain to the instrument and not, even when he's just like warming up or just fiddling around and noodling, boom, boom to the instrument. Not like, oh, let me try to work this out. It's just like immediate, call and response. It's pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, when I heard the Harvest Floor, I reached out to Gore Guts and some of the things that you with that, and then mixing it with black metal. I really liked that. It was something that was really fresh. And then, of course, with Travis's vocals and doing 5 different types of vocals was just amazing. And to me, that was really avant-garde. Different, it was more, a little bit more in the convention for wild like Psyopa was, but it fit together oddly enough.
Yeah, I felt that was our kind of that and Karma Bloody Karma, the record immediately preceding it, were kind of the wild card records in the catalog. It's like a lot of people that now are fans of the band or came on post, say, mid 2010s or whatever.
Yeah.
And people say, "Oh, go back to the earlier records. It's a little more like raw sounding and more grind oriented or less, polished, whatever you want to say." And Harvest Floor is always the one where they're like, "That's the farthest they can go back." But I think it's a lot on that record. A lot of it's because the production got a lot better, and we had Dave McGraw drumming on that album, to present. So his ability really kind of elevated what we were trying to do. But to go speak to what you were saying earlier, I think it was a kind of a combination of us having Billy Anderson produce that record. That he was very like, you guys do what you guys do. Of course, I'm here for production, to be a consultant. That's what I'm also, aside from engineering it. But he really let us go crazy, which in certain instances, he probably should have held us back on some certain things. At least I can speak personally, not for the rest of the guys. But I really kind of was able to just dump everything I wanted to do at that time, or had the ability to do, whether that was all skronky stuff or kind of blurry sounding, guitar lines, or just really like, what is he doing? And the answer is, I don't know. So, just kind of let me able to throw it all out. So, I don't know. I really like that album. I wish we would do more songs off of it currently, but that's another one of those little interband tussles we get into and stuff like that. So,
yeah. Hardest part of being in a band is trying to work with everybody.
Yeah.
Songwriting easy, recording album easy, playing shows easy, but the inner dynamic's always been the hardest part.
Yeah.
In my experience.
Yeah.
And making everyone feel heard and valued and working towards what they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Not always possible, and sometimes things need to align to places with the right people,
Yeah.
But I had something I wanted to say about the Psyopas story.
Mm-hmm.
How he'd sit there all night playing his guitar in the overnight job. I think for a lot of us that end up in the avant-garde realm, we've had some times in our life where we've been kind of isolated from culture, music as a whole, and allowed to kind of develop this unique style without too much external influence. I know for me personally, I've had times going through my crazy life where I've been locked in rehabs or jails and stuff, and I've just had to figure out, and I've just kind of had no reference point other than the things I heard in my younger days, and just pushing boundaries on my own. And I was that guy in a sense in that booth playing for hours, just figuring shit out and developing my own voice. And I think that, I don't know, I'd like to hear your take on that if you've had times in your life you've been kind of cut off from hearing a lot of outside shit and just figuring out your own shit on your own, of just what comes from that brain straight out, with that unfiltered thing.
For me, I would just real quick just say I went to Ranger School in 1990, and it was 3 months of staying awake almost every day, 7 hours sleep a week. So you would be awake all the time. And so whatever were the latest that I had got the CDs. I'd listened to them enough. I had that in my head. So I had songs in my head all day. I wasn't play, but I was thinking about music
Yeah.
and songs were struck, things that were going on in there. And like that's the only thing I could relate to that. But it was a time where I was no access, couldn't even listen to music. I had what was in my head. And
Right.
at the time it had me dancing quite a bit, although I did all kinds of but
Right.
I have those and it really stuck with me.
Yeah.
So Josh, have you been isolated and had
Well, I think like when I was first starting out, like as a kid, we got my first guitar and everything like that. I grew up on a farm, so I had friends at school and everything like that. One or two of them played guitar, but a lot of it was just me like like remembering parts of songs I liked or whatever, and then like, oh, I want to write something like that, and then doing it, and of course doing it completely incorrectly.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
and like really poorly. It was at least imitating what I was trying to do, and then so it was like, oh, it's technically original, not intentionally. As I was trying to do this,
Right.
I want to write a riff exactly like that, and I totally screwed up. But I think also hearing, like, when I was a kid, I was just like telling my parents, we get in the car, I'm like, turn on the radio, you know. So it was always like whatever FM station, which at the time, this is, you know, was little like that, probably the early mid 80s. So it was like top 40 radio, and at that time, hard rock was just kind of becoming a force on radio. So I didn't know. I was hearing the totality of the band, and I thought somehow, yeah, there's a bass guitar player. Yeah, there's a guitar player, maybe two. But for some reason, I'd hear like two guitar players playing, one person playing like melody or different voicings, and then the bass player maybe walking around. And I, for some reason, thought that was one guitar doing all that. So I think I would try to like imitate that sound or what I thought I was hearing. And I unintentionally like made something way busier than it should have been and way harder than it should have been. But I think that's where it kind of came out, at least me personally, like some sort of level of originality, is because I was unable to actually recreate what I was hearing. So the product of that was this thing. And that's like, well, here's my riff. And it's like, what the fuck is that? You know? I don't know.
But it's different. It's different. You know, instead of sitting and figuring out these tabs of all these bands or being exposed to every single bit of music all the time, kind of how we are now with the internet, and we're all so plugged in. But I think developing that voice for me, a lot of it had to do with, you know, I knew some stuff I liked. I knew I liked some weird dissonance and everything, but having those times when I had no reference point and I'm just figuring out on my own, hey, that sounds cool. That's something I want to add to my arsenal of choices, you know. Hey, let's try that, you know. Whoa, that's a crazy interval. I've never played that before, and I really like it. And it's kind of building this, you know, language template to work with without kind of trying to copycat things that I heard so much. You know.
Also, like to kind of just to extend it real quick on what I was saying before, like I went to college, and after I went through all growing up and high school and everything, went to college in Chicago, lived there for 8 years or so. And at that time, this is, you know, early 90s up through almost to 2000. I was here, all the band, there was so many like more of the indie avant-garde bands, you know, going around, you know, super dissonant, but more like a very like almost 4/4 like rock structure, but the guitar playing was always really, whether it was like say US Maple or Jesus Lizard or Lick of Dracula or some of the Touch and Go bands or whatever. I was hearing that, but I was like going, wow, I really love what they're doing, but I just wish they would just, you know, be really angry while they were doing it, you know. So I would try to like hear those bands like, and just like, okay, here, I think I see what they're doing chord wise, I think. So I would just do that and just like, we'll just buzzsaw through it and make it really annoying and, you know, abrasive. And that's kind of, I felt myself very fortunate to be around in that time because there were so many great bands that, I mean, that I was like, I may have not wanted to go to their shows or been like, oh, I'm not going to go see that. That's not a grind band. That's not whatever. Or a death metal. I was too underground, cool, crust, whatever to go to that. But I was still like I worked at a venue for a while. One of my bandmates was a promoter and booked one of the better independent venues in the city. So I got to see all those bands, how many times when I was doing door or just doing like Gopher stuff, and it stuck, and there's still a lot of those bands I can go back now as someone who isn't going to be so contrarian because it's not blast beats and screaming or whatever, and enjoy now. And I think I think that's a valuable thing I'd like to be able to go back and do.
Right on.
Yeah, noise rock is a huge pedestal on the influences that built me to the player I am. Yeah, the hearing Jesus Lizard and even math rock stuff, the Don Caballero and Hella and all the weird shit they were doing. It was more shit that was blowing my mind. And yeah, obviously we're extremists. We want to take it heavier, but I wouldn't be the player I am today without having heard all those bands. And such an important part of my guitar history.
Absolutely.
I absolutely love all those bands, and yeah, being able to create a simple 4/4 structure into something totally bizarre. Just in the weird polyrhythms and the dissonant little chords out of nowhere. Yeah, so I think if more metal bands embrace that noise rock, we could have so much more interesting stuff out there. And luckily we are, a lot more bands are starting to today.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like a small revival going on. But yeah, I actually came out with a noise rock record last year called Big Strut, is the band name, all one word. And just total noise rock cover of these like, cut out rooster things like kind of strutting around. But it was so much fucking fun to just go that route and just do the crazy weird rock perspective, and I had a fucking blast.
Right on.
That sounds great.
Yeah, like I see Mousebong chiming in here and there. Like she really loves noise rock, all of the avant-garde. Like I knew she loved this episode more than any of the others. I want to ask you guys, I see the value of learning how to play other people's music, technical wise, learning how to become technical and improving your craft. But for me, like I don't like to do that so much because I like to copy other stuff. I enjoy being creative. It's not something I'm going to use for an album, or I just love being creative, trying something new when I play.
Well, I think the best benefit of hearing and figuring out other people's music is figuring out how they created that sound that I like. What did they do? When I heard King Crimson as a kid or whatever, and I wanted to know how he was making that noise, I figured out how to play it. And in that sense, now I knew how to make that noise.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to do exactly how he did it.
Yeah.
So really, it's just me. For me, the thing was hearing something special, fresh, and new, and figuring it out so I can steal it and make it my own. But really, it's taking all the things I like from everything and learning that. But yeah, then I have gone down the negative rabbit hole with it of having people hit me up, say, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z album, some genre I've never attempted, and listen to it and kind of go to copycat because I kind of just learned the genre. Okay, I can easily do that. So that's when I've used it negatively. But when I use it positively, it's learning a tool and how I can use that tool moving forward. Because we can't figure out everything ourselves. All of music's been built on a history of people figuring out new shit. And I hope one day people listen to our shit and steal what they like from it and build upon that. But yeah, to me, it's more rather than transcribing a solo or whatever, it's learning what technique they use to create a certain atmosphere that I didn't know how to do at that time.
Right on. Kyler has a comment here, and then we'll get Josh if you have something to add.
Okay.
So ask, how do you get into the zone of coming up with new stuff or embrace the feeling of death? Like for me, I'm just driven. I just do it. I just want to do it. I can't help it. It's kind of like a drug. Like I have to have that fix for me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Like there's a guitar sitting next to the couch in there. Like it's my fiance's guitar. It's her guitar technically, But my other guitar, the one at the Cardinal that you see me playing every time, is in the closet over here. That I bring out like, okay, I'm going to sit at the, my interface or whatever, or my plugins or whatever, and then that's the serious one. And the other one's just kind of like fiddling around with stuff. And it's like, we were talking about this the other day. It's just like I'll sit down and I'm just plunking around, and yeah, there's the same stuff I kind of play over and over, just that I have new riffs that I'm kind of working on or whatever. But then, unfortunately, it's like there's always something new that comes out every time. Yeah. Is it great? Maybe it sucks. Maybe it's whatever. But it's something. It's like the wheels are turning to create something new. So it's like but it's not when I sit down like, okay, I got to write some new stuff. Then it's like I'm under pressure. If I'm just sitting there like letting it organically come out, then that's when I can be actually really productive, I find. So I'm fortunate the way that like I sit down and usually something comes out and I can, take it or leave it later. But
yeah,
it's this constant, it's just in you to just like always come up with new stuff or have something that's going to be interesting for that day that you can work on and evolve in that little piece to maybe apply to, nothing at all, or just to having to enjoy or apply to a song you want to write for whatever project you're working on. So.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my kind of rule of thumb is if I still remember the riff the next day, it's good enough. I'm not transcribing it. I'm not writing it down. A lot of times I'm not even scratch recording it. But, I know when something feels good to play. And, you feel it inside you. It's not an intellectual thing. It's like maybe intellectually I get there by trying some new phrasings. But when it feels fucking good, it feels fucking good. And that's rock and roll. You know what I mean? And that's metal. And if I wake up the next day or after 2 days, if I get busy and can't play, and I still remember it right away, I know that's worth my fucking time. And for me, I'm working on so much shit that I kind of have to get in the mindset of each project I'm working on. So, if I'm doing a certain thing, which is my double bass, weird power violence band that with prog influences, I got to be in a different headspace for that. Than if I'm sitting down to do some way out acausal intrusion shit where I'm really pushing myself and it's very through composed. Like acausal intrusion, I sit there for like 4 or 5 hours and just work out a song, and I don't stop till it's like I'm not putting it on hold. I'm not waiting till the next day. Like I'm fucking, and if it's not working out, I'll put it down and I'll come back to it the next day. But it's kind of just like a lot of times it comes out right away. Like I'm just working through these riffs, I'm channeling them into each other, and it's all flowing perfectly. Sometimes it's easy, boom, song's ready. Sometimes it's a struggle, and I have to put it down and come back to it. Whereas other times there's bands where I'm playing with a lot of other people who are helping composing, so I'll have a random riff I remember, kind of like you were referring to. They'll have a random riff, and I kind of have a big picture in mind where I know how to fit the pieces together pretty well. And some of my favorite use of that outlook is when the album's done and putting the whole album together, picking that song order, creating those little bridges and those interludes. I mean, I love that stuff. To me, the full album experience is so important. And it's something a lot of these kids today miss out on because they got the Spotify and the dumb,
that is
bouncing from song to song.
That is a dying art. Album track order and an album experience is a sadly dying art. Everything is playlists. So kids don't listen to full albums. The kids don't listen to full albums. So it's like that's why everything has to feel like on the business side of things, like it's a single and it can stand alone by itself, which is right. I mean, it's a story. The whole album is a story, and I want to write a story or be a contributor to writing this story, And
the benefit we can get from that is saying, all right, we got to make every song fucking good.
The banger.
I got to bring it on every song. I can't have the album lull out a bit, because that might be the only song they hear and they say, man, fuck this band, they suck. Yeah. When they don't see the big picture of I came in so hard on songs 1 through 3, I did an interlude. Kind of had a little weaker track, and then I ramped it way back up on 7 through 10. They don't see that. They just hear the single and say, "Oh, that was weak." So for me to rather than live in the negative and look at the positive, all right, now I got to bring it hard on every song. I can't I can't sit here twiddling away on a clean intro for too long because they're going to lose their interest.
Right.
Which, in fact, it pushes me to think outside my comfort zone. You know,
Yeah.
because me, I like my Pink Floyd and my long, clean intros and my psychedelic bullshit. But I know today's world's not that anymore, and maybe I can pull a disembowelment and throw it in the middle of the song when they're already hooked, or maybe I can, throw it later in the album. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how society and music has had to uh, regress or progress to, fit with the culture. You know.
Yeah,
Mhm.
great. Thanks, guys. Yeah, Mousebong says you can't even listen to a band or an album and that whole experience, and that's how I do. I want to listen to the whole thing. I enjoy. I wanted to share a book with one of my favorite engineers, producers, Rick Rubin. I got it in North Carolina a couple of years ago, and he has this book is freaking amazing. It's about exactly what we're talking. The creative process, not forcing, but like be a really original. How do you make good choices and not force it, make it too sterile or forced? And he's got a, I mean, he's every chapter got a little quote in there before he does like a couple, 2, 3 pages, 10 pages. And there's one I wanted to share with you. The book is called "The Creative Act: A Way of Being." It's by Rick Rubin. He produced the Danzig first album, uh, Red
Mm,
South of Heaven.
love the first Danzig records
Mhm.
Yeah,
to this day.
yeah, he's outstanding. But his quote, like this book, is so inspiring for me. I know you guys would like it too. The ability to look deeply is the root of creativity. To see past the ordinary, mundane, and get my otherwise invisible. He has stuff like this through, and he just breaks it down like the way I've always kind of felt when I think about being creative and coming up with something new. He put it down into words like perfectly throughout in so many different ways to think about it. But I highly recommend this Rick Rubin book. A really good one. So that's going to segue. We want to wrap up in maybe 10 minutes. I want to talk about who's really pushing it for you guys. I want to throw out a few right off the bat. Um, and then I want to get your ideas on this. So Nightmare is one that came out last year. A little bit
Yeah.
on the death metal side. It's the old one of the old vocalists for Guigon.
Mhm.
Um, that this album was outstanding. Really enjoy this album. Nothingness is another one, more on the death metal side, but definitely really good. Really love that one here. The Crin is one, they're more like kind of metalcore. This came out in like 2009, maybe 2010. They're out of
Mhm.
Minnesota, still together. They put out a couple more albums, but this one is outstanding. I've ordered the vinyl for Pantheism, which is a causal attribute, and I have this one as well. These are all three of their albums, and these are Nick's albums, are outstanding. He's done one per the last 3 years. Just an amazing creative person. Fantafax, Hive Mind Theory, I think
Mhm.
it is. Hive Mind Narcosis. This came out last year. Really bizarre. Like this is stuff I'm really into. Um, and then album of the year for last year, which was just behind panpsychism, parasite, was Mithridatum. These are guys from
Mm.
facelifts. This
Mhm.
is an amazing, and more on the black metal side as well. There's a lot of kind of Deathspell Omega in there. Let me read what Tyler's talking about here. You guys got me through the pandemic with Bring Back the Play. There is not one song I don't love that I don't like. I love. That's for you, Josh.
Cool. Thank you, Kyle.
So who's really pushing things? This Acausal Intrusion Fantafax, the new Ahab, I thought was really really beautiful, clean vocals and some clean spots where they change things up, and then get really heavy in with the Funeral Doom. But what do you guys have?
There's only I always say like I put on like I was telling you, I put on like those kind of lo-fi black metal stuff. That's what I like play while I'm cooking. Sometimes I'll have on the speaker. But as far as like stuff that I like sit down like, okay, I really want to listen to this. I search this out. There's a band, I think they've probably been around for about 10 years now. They're called Arcton.
I don't know.
They were on Fallen Empire Records, which kind of dissolved, and now I want to say, I don't remember what label they're on now. They moved to a different label, but either way, it's like an international collaboration. There's of course no band members listed. You don't know who they are. I mean, if you do enough research, you can find out. Oh, well, this guy was in Voidhanger. This guy was in Mar. This guy was in whatever. But they basically release records that are about 40 minutes long. There's one song that's the conventional kind of music part of it that's 20 plus minutes. And then there's another 20-minute song that's all ambient music. And it's their same consistent way they lay things out. And the music portion is like, at least the artwork is very sort of cosmic themed. There's like, the cover's like, oh, here's this nebula and here's, some sort of, they're all digital mashup artwork or whatever, but sort of cosmic sort of theme. Lyrically, I have no idea what they're talking about. But the music is just, it's very like just intense. It becomes this sort of like giant wave of just like double kicks and atmospheric guitar and, screech, various vocal styles and everything. And then we'll hit little ruts where it's like more little delicate passages, then it goes back. So it's almost like if you're looking at the wave patterns, it's like, so it's like almost suffocatingly like just beautifully oppressive. And then you have this ambient track to listen to afterwards. And it seems like, they have a theme, that's their thing, it gets repetitive, but I love that band. Like, I don't know how, I think it's more of their form that's more avant-garde than like the music being that skronky or crazy or whatever like that. It's just, It's so like sort of futuristic, and it's like a capsule that you're getting that was like you'd find on a future civilization. It's just this kind of cool stuff. So that's all I have right now.
And who is that again, Josh?
Arcton, Arktinn.
Okay.
They just put out a record last year. This is their most recent one.
Yeah, definitely check that.
Yeah.
So that reminds me of exactly a band I'm thinking of and that's actually the last LP I bought, because it's a really weird black metal band I discovered like 3-4 years ago called Mar, M-A-H-R.
Yeah, it's part of the same. Same guys. It's Voidhanger, the band Voidhanger, Mar. Those two. Couple of those people plus others are.
Oh, cool. So I'm sure it's very similar, but they just I got hooked on them a few years ago for that just totally cavernous but also well composed, and it's just the atmosphere is so heavy and disturbing. It really hooked me in, and it's really the exact same thing you were saying with the dynamics and the structures, but I saw Mar came out with a new record, which was only 2 songs, 2 20-minute songs.
Yeah.
But they're both pretty heavy with lighter passages, so they don't do the ambient thing. But I had to snatch that up right away. I mean, they're creating a unique spin on black metal. That's people do the cavernous thing, people do the oppressive thing, but just the way they execute it is so different. It's so different that no one else could do that. And really, that's what I think makes a good musician. A good musician is we do something no one else can do. Anyone can put in the time and learn to shred, but there's certain things we do that no one else can play. Whether it's the way we attack the strings or the way we do certain phrasings or the way we compose a song. It's what the unique things about us that make us a good musician. And then, going back, the last show I went to down here was Thantific Seth and Sunless, and just the fact those two bands fucking, I couldn't believe the Thanta, I don't even know how to say it, but they pulled off their album 100% live.
Wow.
And like they were doing some insane shit on that album that it really blew. First time my mind's been blown in a while because we've all gone so far the Disnam route already. It's kind of hard to blow my mind, you know. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, that's kind of cool. But they came and did some time bending shit with, you know, and literal pitch bending and time bending and time warping shit that I haven't heard anyone else do. It fucking blew my mind, and they pull it off live like nothing.
Wow.
Three guys, a guitar, bass, and drums. That's it.
What
You
was
know,
that?
and
Was that at Brick by Brick?
yeah, I was there.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and then Sunless is his classic Gorguts worship, but they take it to a jazzier level and a faster level and a more technical level that I just love. But it's really just I suck getting put on the spot with this because I have so many records. I'm always listening to new shit, and there's always shit blowing my mind just depending what mood I'm in. But on the black metal side of things, I'm going to be releasing this one album that's total. I mean, I didn't do it. I'm releasing it on my label. Totally out there, synth only black metal, which is almost combining like the coldest of almost techno with these horrific black metal vocals over it. And I thought that it's not dungeon synth. It's totally colder. It's colder. It's more abrasive, but then it also goes into like post-punk calmer territory. I mean, it's 3 fucking songs, but what this guy did, you can tell he's in isolation in the sense it's so far removed from anything that's been done. He's just taking what he likes of something and another, and with his own uniqueness. And I'm really excited to get that out. So should be in the next month or two. I'll let you guys know.
Awesome. Yes. Something I didn't announce is that Nick is the founder of Malevolent Sound, so he's putting out a right now.
Yeah, and I'm blessed that it's kind of on its own, just turned into all these weird black metal guys hitting me up. So I'm not complaining, you know. But I'm pretty much just gonna put out whatever the fuck I want, whether it's free jazz or death metal, weird black metal. As long as it's weird, that's my only stipulation. That, you know, it has to fucking sound different to me. And then selfishly put out my own shit whenever I feel like it too. You know.
Right. All right. Well, so I think we're about done. We could go on, I'm sure. But I just wanted to give you guys I'm sure everybody listening in Morgrotland would like to hear what you guys have going on. I know, Josh, you have a big tour coming up, the Big Decibel tour coming up this April or May. I think it's April or May.
Yeah, we have in March. We're in Europe here, out for a month with was it? Signs of the Swarm and 200 Stab Wounds and Vomit Forth. And then in the U.S. In May we're doing Chaos and Carnage, which we just announced. So that's the last thing, you know, we have booked for 2024. So maybe something in the fall, whatever territory that's in. But we've been fairly busy. We have a little time off. Like we finished our last tour right before the holidays, and then got like a month and a half or so off. So we're kind of trying to regain our sanity, and then we're going to do those tours and probably start writing again.
Yeah.
Nice.
You notice that your crowd size is getting bigger. I mean, the merch line at your shows, it never stopped. For every freaking that was up, I saw you guys with the dark black 100.
Oh yeah, Decibel last year.
Yeah, your merch line was going the entire night. And
we're fortunate that our singer does a lot of like designing and collaborating with artists, and some designs are his own too. That he's just really savvy about getting good looking merch out there. Yeah,
right.
So it's, yeah.
But have you noticed your crowd size being bigger? And because it seems to me like when you guys got on, people were more nuts about you than Dark Funeral.
Yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate we feel very fortunate that there's been a very good, steady upward trajectory of attendance. The tour we just did, that we just finished with Sing Sudabog and Immolation and Castrator, that was great. That was probably, I would almost say the best tour we've ever done. Like headlining wise, like a standard tour that wasn't like, oh, you're doing these crazy fests here and there. It was probably the best tour we've done, especially as you mentioned, it's like attendance wise, it was the best number. You know, I hate, it sounds douchey to use these terms, but the best numbers we've ever done. You know, so it's definitely, you know, we just got to try to maintain, keep people's attention and everything, and just try to keep putting out the best stuff we can. You know, and hopefully people will stick around for it.
All right, Nick, what like 4 different projects at all, Malevolent Sound Records. Is there what on at the moment?
So newest on the horizon, I just put up the pre-order for the newest Nothing Is Real album, which is my solo kind of progressive doom project, and extremely happy with. I am actually satisfied with this record, which is tough for me, and I really feel like I've pushed the sound to something much more mature and monolithic, kind of biblical sounding doom shit, with plenty of weird noise rock and weird time signatures and prog shit in there. All the good things I like, and consolidate it to a nice 44 minutes, which is tough for me too, but I've been learning to really, like what we were talking about with the new culture and the attention span, really hone the best of what I'm working on and put it, and it's like kind of like when we see a show, right? Would you rather see a great 20-minute set or a shitty 2-hour set? I'd rather see a great 20-minute set. Mm-hmm. So I'm extremely happy with that. That pre-order is up on Bandcamp, and then I'm just about finished up with the new Dwelling Below record, which is my band out on Transcending Obscurity, and that's fully improvised death doom. I get together with my guys out in Mississippi, Louisiana area. One of my main drummers lives out there, and bassist lives out there too, and we just join up and we fucking go for it, and we've all played together so much that it comes out fucking phenomenal every time. And then I take those raw tracks home and I build on it with extra guitars and leads and stuff. So for the second album, I feel much better than the first, just from our maturity playing together. And then what's it called? Transcending Obscurity is also going to put out another record of ours, which is all composed and we worked hard on, called Hierarchies. And it's total gore guts worship, but even weirder, even less gain, the lowest gain I've gone yet, and just totally bizarre avant-garde jazz mixed with death metal. And I'm fucking totally, he's playing some crazy fretless bass shit, and it really just came out fucking great. So yeah, and then also I'm working on I'm about finished. I decided to go ahead and do a post-punk goth dark wave album. And I did all, it was so much fucking fun. And played with my drummer from A Cause that we play with all the time, but he was able to play so tight, like he's a drum machine, and I'm doing crazy clean chorus, washed out guitars, and threw some Juno synths in there and really just nailed the fucking vibe. And that's another genre that was extremely helpful for me, because it's all about simplicity. And you know me, I'm a busy guy. I like to throw everything at the wall. This, I had to fucking calm it way down, say this is the riff, this works, don't add all these layers. It's all about sparseness and simplicity. So you get the trippy washed out guitar, the sad riffs, you get the driving bass line, the dun 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 dun, and then you get the washy synths, and then you're done. Don't keep fucking with it. And that's an important lesson for me to learn, is when to stop fucking with it. So that's a few things I got on the horizon. Got a tour getting panned out. We're finishing up an album first, getting an LP release, and then but I'm playing with, I don't know if you guys have heard of Man is the Bastard. It's an old
absolutely. Airport?
Yes, I'm playing with the drummer. We have a new incarnation called Bastard Collective,
Oh, okay.
and it's all new songs. We play a couple of their old songs, but it's me. It's one of my old buddies on bass. It's the original drummer of Man Is the Bastard.
Mhm.
Some of their original guys doing the noise machines, and then we're bringing in some saxophone in the mix, and kind of just going a little more proggy with it, a little more longer and intense compositions. So I'm engineering that whole album. It's about done, and as soon as that LP's out, we'll probably hit a little tour. So I'll let you
Oh,
guys
that's
know.
sick. Cool. Yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Well, guys, just outstanding. I think we've discussed something that's seen on the internet for a long discussion about who's really pushing things creatively in metal. I'm so glad I chose you to have on, and thank you for your time coming in here. This has been amazing for me. I've had so many comments out there. Just guys, she said it was outstanding experience for her. It was for me. I will go back and I've written down all kinds of bands you guys have talked about. Go listen to those now. Hope everyone else watching has done well. Love to have you guys. I'll think of something. Maybe we can get you on again. But any parting words? Now's the time. But thank you so much for your time. This has been Josh Moore of and Nick Turner of Causal Intrusion, 5 or 6 with us, and Malevolence.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
It's been a pleasure.